Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, host of the Deep Dive on YouTube and senior fellow and military expert at Defense Priorities. When you're dealing with an insurgency that will embed itself within civilian populations, you've got your hands full.
This just really underscores the scope of what we're talking about here. You talked about that they're trying to get 1 million people out of this part of the Gaza Strip, and they're not going to succeed. They're not going to get all those people out of there, so there's going to be a lot in the area.
Yeah.
And that also shows you how massive what we're talking about is. This is not like the Second Battle of Fallujah in 2004, which the U.S. Marines spent, I think, 2 or 3 months having to do this same kind of operation. Now you're talking about orders of magnitude larger. And of course, there's many, many more Hamas fighters in here than there were insurgents that we faced at that particular battle. And these guys, you can count on it that they are very well stocked. They've been preparing this for a long time. They know the terrain, and I just can't imagine a more difficult task for the Israeli Defense Forces.
I want to stay with you for just a second, Colonel, and I want to get your reaction to something that Defense Secretary Austin said yesterday. He was asked more or less, at what point do we have to consider a contingency here, in particular if Hezbollah involves itself more forcefully in this battle?
Should Israel be attacked from the north, from Hezbollah in Lebanon, will you be willing to exercise your force and join the fighting?
I won't speculate on anything that could happen in the future. I will just tell you clearly that the United States will continue to support Israel's right to defend itself.
If Hezbollah gets involved, how big of a problem are we looking at?
I think that's one of the most important things for an American audience to understand right now is to what's at stake in the context that this whole thing is being fought in. Because you have, I believe it was within the last 12 hours, you have some of the Hezbollah leaders saying that their red line to attack is if the IDF does go in large numbers into the Gaza Strip. They said if that was the case, they are going to open another northern flank on this so that Israel will have a two-front war. Now, whether they do it or whether they don't remains to be seen, or if it's just a bluff. But if they do, then you're going to have a big problem. If the United States does engage, then the next part of this so-called axis of resistance, which is Iran, Syria, a number of these other violent groups in that region, have said their red line is if the U.S. gets involved directly on the ground, either with Hezbollah or against Hamas. And if that happens, then this whole thing could explode into a regional war, and that is not in America's interest. And I think we need to do everything in our power to keep this contained to the Gaza Strip.